Trump versus Pritzker. So President Trump now warning that he has made up his mind and that he is going to deploy federal troops to the city of Chicago.
Chicago is a hellhole right now. We're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it.
Well, when it comes to that, minutes later, the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, responded to Trump.
I can't live in a fantasy land where I pretend Trump is not tearing this country apart for personal greed and power. He has no idea what he's talking about. There is no emergency that warrants deployment of troops. He is insulting the people of Chicago by calling our home a hellhole. And anyone who takes his word at face value is insulting Chicagoans, too.
Pritzker also says he has reason to believe that the Trump administration has already begun staging the Texas National Guard for deployment to his state. Lulu Garcia-Navarro, Shermichael Singleton out front. So, Lulu, you can hear the intensity in his voice. And I just want to say, though, in terms of what he's saying, it is a new level of fury from Governor Pritzker. Right? He hasn't shied away from a fight. He hasn't shied away from this fight. He likes a fight. But this is different. What he was saying about Trump was different.
It is different. And I think Governor Pritzker feels like it's warranted. I mean, let's put this into the context of what has historically happened in this country. You normally do not have a president essentially saying that he's going to send in troops to a city of the same country, right? I mean, if you look at this, this is punishment and not policy. Policy for crime would be like, I'm going to give you more money. I'm going to surge the police. I'm going to do things to help you tackle crime. This is aimed squarely at states and governors he doesn't like. I read something in the FT the other day which said if this was happening in any other country, they would paint this as, basically a president targeting opposition members in cities that he doesn't control. I mean, it just isn't American. This isn't the way we do things here.
Yeah, sure, Mike, I think Lulu does have a fair point here, right? You would say if this were another country targeting opposition, right? Targeting his opposition leaders, opposition locations, certainly if Putin were doing it. Because the reality of it is that if this were really about crime, why is Trump not doing it in any Republican-led cities or states?
Look, I would do it wherever the crime is concentrated. It's objectively true that there are pockets of the city of Chicago that do have high concentrations of crime. We can't deny that. Look, is this a long-term strategy? Absolutely not. But it is a temporary fix. The president using the bully pulpit to put a spotlight on crime in Chicago, I think makes sense. We're discussing it. The mayor of D.C. just signed an act today allowing local police to work indefinitely with federal law enforcement because what they have seen is a decrease to a number of 0 in terms of murders in the city of D.C. Why would that not be a good thing? In Labor Day, just passed, for example, 58 people were shot in Chicago. 8 of those people killed. The youngest, who is now in critical condition, is a teenager. So, Aaron, to me, you may not necessarily like what the president is doing, but how in the world could any sane person not agree that trying to make safer communities for people who live in some of those higher concentrated areas of crime is not something that should be a bipartisan effort?
So, Lulu, the D.C. mayor, to the point that Shermichael's just saying, Muriel Bowser, she's just issued an executive order that requires coordination with federal law enforcement to the maximum extent allowable by law, in the words of her order, without an expiration date. And she did just days ago admit that Trump's crackdown in D.C. was reducing crime. So what does it mean that she has essentially, it sounds like, said, well, they can stay as long as they want and work with them?
I think it means that she's probably not going to be reelected as mayor of D.C. because if the polling here shows that about 80% of D.C. residents think that this is an absolute overreach, and so this is not happening in consultation with the people who both the mayor and the president are supposed to represent. They do not like this. They see this as an infringement on the city itself, and they see this as an occupation and not as some sort of liberation from crime. Of course nobody likes crime. Of course murders are bad. But this is about something much deeper. How do you do this? Whose role is it to tackle it? And who has autonomy?
So, Shermichael, what do you make of the mayor?
Can I push back a little bit? I mean, who's saying this? 2 weeks ago, I was on air on Laura Coates' show, and we aired about a 4 or 5 minute package of one of our reporters talking to residents in D.C., for example, who live in some of those very dangerous areas. Mixed race people, young and old, older people saying, at my age, I have to go home before sundown because it is too dangerous. So maybe if you're talking to some milquetoast liberal who lives in Northeast D.C. or Northwest D.C. in a $2 million house, then maybe they're saying,
Virginia,
it's great.
and I live in
maybe
Washington, D.C.
But let me tell you something. There are a
You live
lot
in
of people
Virginia,
who live in the
and I
poor
live in
areas who
Washington,
do not
D.C.
see it the way that Lulu just described. And again, I'm not saying, Aaron, that this is a long-term fix. I acknowledge the fact that this is only temporary. You do got to increase funding. You do have to have more policing. But hell, that's pretty hypocritical coming from the other side who demonized the hell out of police for 4 years.
Shermichael,
give me
I
a
am
break
a
here.
reporter. I am not the other side. I am simply saying that there was a recent poll that said 80% of the residents of this city do not agree. That's a fact. Now, you can try and cherry pick who you want to talk about, but that is just the way that the people feel here. Now, I believe in a democracy, people who live in a city should have a say in what happens there.
I
Call me
agree, but
crazy.
I agree. I'm also a strategist. I've worked in a lot of polls, and I know focus group, size,
80%.
education, ethnicity, all of that stuff matters, Lulu. It's easy to come up with a poll and say, well, this demonstrates what most people believe. You know that as well as I do.
I think at the end of the day, this is not about crime. I understand that the president and you would like to make this about crime. The bigger concern here is what this means, putting troops on the streets of American cities, troops that the governors of those cities don't want, the mayors of those cities don't want, and the people of those cities don't want. What does that say about the United States of America today? The concern, and I've worked in many of these places, is that this turns into some kind of police state where, of course, you have safety, but you lack liberty. And that is the concern I'm hearing from many, many people.
And Lulu,
right,
I don't want that either, by the way. No
Okay.
American wants to live in a police state. I'm in agreement with you there. But people also deserve to live in safe communities, and having 60, 50, 40 people killed in the
100%.
city every other weekend just seems nonsensical to me.
All right, we'll hit pause there. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Aaron.
For the conversation. Thank you. And tonight, President Trump addressing rampant rumors over the weekend that he had died.
It's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. It's also sort of a longer weekend, it's Labor Day weekend, so I would say a lot of people know. I was very active this Labor Day.
I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to not have heard the discussion. I mean, the hashtag Trump dead was trending online on social media platforms throughout the holiday weekend. I mean, it was really incredible, frankly. But the reason was, I guess, because Trump had not been seen for 3 days, no public events, which is highly unusual for him because he's always out and about. Also driving speculation was this visible recurring bruising on his hand, which obviously doesn't look good. Out front now, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, who has been a White House medical consultant for 4 administrations. Dr. Reiner, the sources tell CNN that the attention to Trump's hand bruising has made him self-conscious, that until recently he's been trying to use heavy makeup to cover the bruising, and you can see that on it in that one image, which has obviously gone viral. This concerns you. Tell me why.
Well, I'm more concerned. I don't know what he has a bruise on his hand, and I'm sorry he's self-conscious about it. When you see him sitting at the Resolute desk, he always covers his right hand with his left hand in kind of an awkward way, and I'm sorry he feels self-conscious about it. He's a 79-year-old man. He's pretty vigorous for a 79-year-old man, and stuff happens to 79-year-old people. But he's been portrayed for a long time now as basically a part of the Marvel universe. Ronnie Jackson said he could live to be 200, and when you're portrayed that way, you can't have a bruise on your hand. And I don't know why he has the recurrent bruise. But the bigger issue is I don't think in this country we've ever really had full candor about the health of our presidents, and it's really time to start talking about how the public can and Congress can remain informed about the salient points about the health of our leaders.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the press secretary today says Trump's been completely transparent, unlike his predecessor. But obviously, that's not the case. I mean, to your point, I wouldn't say there was transparency then either, but there certainly isn't now.
Well, I think when you're covering a lesion on your arm with makeup, that's basically the opposite of transparency. That's being opaque.
In the most literal sense.
Right, but with this president, and in his last administration, he went to Walter Reed in November of 2019, emergently on a Saturday afternoon, and the White House just never told people what that was all about. It's been reported that in 2020 he had COVID days before it was announced to the public. So I think there's precedent to basically understand that this administration has not been completely candid about the health of this president.